A maned wolf hunts in the Cerrado. The Cerrado is a unique natural landscape of grassy plains and open woodland. It also makes excellent farmland. At its heart lies a place called Emas. On the high plateau of central Brazil, Emas is one of the country's finest national parks. Its size is about 500 square miles, a wild sanctuary for animals and plants whose ways are still little known. The large ears of the maned wolf pinpoint the faintest rustle. Though called a wolf, it catches surprisingly small animals, insects, mice, and sometimes birds. It also eats fruit. It's a solitary and elusive hunter. Its long legs enable it to move easily through the tall grass. The maned wolf is now one of South America's endangered species. They're seldom seen by day, preferring to hunt in the cool of the night. It's the dry season now, but there's water and shade in the riverside forest. Green throughout the year, these forests follow the course of the river. Once, Brazil was largely covered by this Cerrado. The tropical rainforests were then just small patches. But that was 18,000 years ago, when North America was in the grip of the last ice age. Since then, as the world's climate became warmer and the rainforests spread, the Cerrado shrank back and was confined to these central high plains, the Brazilian Planalto. The soil here has weathered from some of the most ancient rocks on Earth. It's old and exhausted. Over thousands of years, rain has washed out its mineral nutrients. Today, the rainwater that drains into the rivers is almost as pure as the day it fell. The two major rivers that rise in Emas roughly form the park's boundaries. They and their few tributaries are the only permanent sources of water, and they provide shady corridors that are home to many animals that seldom venture out onto the plains between. Not only birds build nests in these trees, but insects too. This is termite architecture, a home for thousands, and a source of food that Kiskadees have learned to exploit. A South American river is at once a place of beauty and of danger. Even the largest rodent in the world takes care. A young capybara responds to its mother's alarm. In the moist recesses of this forest, they say, the trees have ears. But they're actually bracket fungi, fruits of decay within the fallen branches. A rufous-tailed jacamar adroitly pursues insects in flight. A dragonfly is a common catch. The jacamar is one of several birds found only in the riverside forest. A capybara returns to the river after a night spent grazing in the nearby grasslands. It's as big as a pig. Observing it to be strictly vegetarian, the Indians call this huge rodent the master of the grasses. Masters of the water, too. They have webbed feet and swim well. But even here, they're not entirely safe. That most massive of snakes, the giant anaconda, has a taste for capybara and alligator and fish, anything along the river that can feed its bulk. Explorers tried to outdo each other with their extravagant stories of its adult length. 80 feet being claimed by some for what they called the bull killer. Only half grown, this 16-footer will double its length. Though ponderously slow on land, the huge anaconda becomes lithe and agile in the water. On the bank, these young capybaras are safer, for the anaconda is too slow to pursue them out of water. The park has a wide variety of both poisonous and non-poisonous snakes. This grass snake is non-poisonous to man and is basically active during the day, hunting for small rodents and frogs. As do most reptiles, it alternates between the sun and shade, trying to maintain a constant body temperature. A Teju lizard also warms itself, for the tropical nights in the park can be cold, even frosty. The Teju is more than 3 feet long. It's a formidable reptile with an appetite for birds and their eggs. Locally, it's called Ladrão de Ovos, the egg thief. A number of forest birds fly out in the early morning to feed on the open plains. The termites out here build castles, mounds that make a handy perch for the blue and yellow macaw. It's feasting on a fruit plucked from a dwarf palm growing among the grasses. The curassow, a sort of South American game bird, is less bold. It's a forest bird that seldom seeks food this far out in the open. The female joins the search. Truly at home in the open grasslands is South America's largest bird, the rhea. They stand almost 5 feet tall and are incapable of flying. Instead, they can run at 30 miles an hour. In Brazil, rheas are called Emas, and that's how the park got its name. Rheas are conspicuous, yet their size and running ability affords them protection from most predators. But another bird here has become a master of disguise. It's in sight now, and it's called a patu. It's hard to see even close up. Disguised as a broken branch, it can deceive a keen-eyed hawk. Only at dusk does it fly off to catch insects. Emas is full of surprises. It's midday, and a giant anteater slowly awakens. With no den of its own, it sleeps out here on the plains, blanketed from the chilly nights by its huge, hairy tail. It eats only insects, a diet which doesn't provide much energy for an animal this size, so its dense coat helps to conserve heat. Only when the day is warmed up sufficiently does the anteater rise and wander off in search of food. Anteaters come in a variety of sizes. This smaller version occasionally wanders out into the open, but spends most of its life climbing in forest trees. It's the lesser anteater. The presence of such highly specialized creatures is a clue to the story of how life developed here. There was a time when the continent of South America was an island. For 70 million years, it was a world apart, and a great variety of uniquely South American animals evolved. Among them, the first anteaters and their relatives, the armadillos. In those long-ago days, there were vegetarian armadillos the size of an armored car. The anteaters became remarkably well suited to eating insects, with a toothless, tubular mouth and a long, sticky tongue to help lap up the insects more efficiently. Today's armadillos are the descendants of those that specialized in digging. Some spend almost all their lives underground. The types of armadillo and anteater found now are those that survived a severe test 3 million years ago. The continent's long isolation came to an end, and a narrow bridge arose between North and South America, allowing animals to cross between the continents. Some went north. The armadillos got a foothold in North America. And from the north came deer, camels, cats, and dogs, dozens of invaders new to South America. In the years that followed, the competing immigrants drove out many of the original South American inhabitants. But the most dramatic change was yet to come. People arrived from North America about 11,000 years ago. By the time they'd reached the tip of South America, they'd hunted many of the mammals of both continents to extinction. The pampas deer was one of the immigrants. Somehow it survived, but today it's very rare, and Emas is one of its few strongholds. Giant anteaters are wanderers, but there's a reason for their nomadic life. A female carries her youngster piggyback. With no fixed abode, she's obliged to carry it wherever she goes. About 9 months old, this youngster must be a towering burden for her, even though it will occasionally dismount to feed itself. Close by, another adult wanders the plains. The anteaters move from colony to colony in search of termites, laboriously visiting as many as 40 separate nests each hour. They don't stop and feed longer at one colony because the various termites have effective defenses. In some colonies, the termites retreat out of reach. In others, they attack. Either way, the giant anteaters very soon have to move on, their wanderings dictated by the only prey they're able to eat. There are countless termites on the plains of Emas, and they have a key role to play, both as a source of food and, more importantly, for their beneficial effects in enriching the soil. There are more than 25 million termite mounds in the park. The biggest, which can be almost 7 feet tall, are the work of just one type of termite, Cornytermes. Soil particles are cemented by millions of tiny workers into rock-hard towers, which with regular maintenance last for decades. Within these fortress walls, in a complex system of chambers and galleries, an army of termites lives in ideal conditions of temperature and humidity. Cornytermes' home attracts other types of termites, many of which don't build mounds of their own. Instead, they occupy and seal off sections of the fortress, leading separate lives under the same roof. 17 different kinds of termites are known to live within these mounds. Big though the mounds are, the most extensive nests are underground and constructed by a society of insects totally unrelated to termites. In the heat of the day, there's no sign of the owners above ground. Below ground, it's a different story. In hundreds of chambers, leaf-cutting ants cultivate gardens of an unusual fungus. Specially selected leaves harvested from the plains above are fed to the fungus, which lives nowhere else but in these ant nests. The fungus digests the leaves and in turn is cropped by the millions of ants and their gigantic queen. In this labyrinthine city of ants, which extends below the surface for 30 feet or more, lives an unexpected community of other creatures. Rhinoceros beetles breed here. And, ignored by the ants, a centipede explores the corridor. Several reptiles live here, too. It's a strange company of uninvited guests about whose habits virtually nothing is known. Some are obviously scavenging on the ant colony's rubbish dump, the fungus garden refuse, 16 feet below ground. But why are the beetle larvae, cockroaches, and other members of this thriving community not attacked by the fierce soldier ants, whose job it is to guard against such intruders, and whose powerful jaws are designed for chopping them up? The ants tolerate the lodgers because they've acquired the colony odor and therefore are not recognized as intruders. Worker ants do routinely investigate the hard pupae of rhinoceros beetles, but aren't alarmed. The most vulnerable larva of the beetle does excite curiosity, but even though it's been feeding on the fungus gardens of the ants, it's still allowed to proceed unharmed. It's impregnated with the smell of the colony and escapes into the soil where it will pupate. It's an uneasy coexistence based on deception by smell. For months, hardly a drop of rain has fallen on the sun-baked plains of Emas. The land is parched and dry, so dry that lightning can start fires. For thousands of years, these grasslands were deliberately burned. The Kaipo Indians started fires to flush game from cover. Today, farmers burn Brazil's cerrado to clear their land and improve grazing for their cattle. Each year, unchecked fires sweep across the plains and into the park. In some years, half the park is burned by errant fires. But it isn't necessarily the disaster it appears. Fire is a part of life on the cerrados. Termites are unharmed, protected within their flame-proof mounds. And most of the plants here are adapted to survive being burned. They'll rapidly re-sprout from their roots. This woody fruit is fire-resistant. The seeds inside are undamaged. Thick, corky bark protects the heartwood of cerrado trees. And those creatures that spend their lives underground may not even notice the passing of a fire at all. The only disadvantage of this charred landscape to this naked-tailed armadillo is that it's more visible to a predator. But it won't be above ground for long. It has an insatiable appetite for termites and ants. And unlike anteaters, it can stay put and feed well at any single colony. Having sniffed out a promising site, it goes to work with its immensely powerful forelegs and large claws. The armadillo is designed for excavation. The dry season lasts for 5 months. In October, moist winds sweep in from the Atlantic, bringing rain to the hot, high plains of Emas. Almost 5 feet of rain falls between October and April. At ground level, the heavy downpours can cause chaos. Caught out in the open, a column of leaf-cutting ants receives a battering. More importantly, their nest is threatened. Rainwater floods into the entrance tunnels. But the ant's nest is designed to cope with just such an emergency. Water drains down the main tunnels, and although it may claim a few victims along the way, it's channeled past the vital fungus gardens. They're housed in special side chambers that remain high and dry throughout the storm. The first rains changed the face of Emas. Now, at night on the plains, an astonishing cityscape of twinkling lights appears. The explorers who first witnessed these eerie lights traced them to the termite mounds and noticed flying insects nearby. But what caused the lights? Was it a fungus or a bacteria, or the termites themselves? To them, it remained both amazing and puzzling. It's now known that the lights are produced by beetle larvae lurking in burrows in the termite mounds. The larvae are hunters, and the luminous glow of their heads lures flying insects to them. A more conventional hunter is at work at the base of the mound. A mouse called Oxymicturus has a particular taste for termites. Just how many kinds of rodents there are in the park, what they all feed on and where they all live, isn't known. It is known that this shy rat is found only by the rivers. Like its larger relative, the capybara, it has webbed feet for swimming. It eats not only fruits and insects, but also hunts fish in the shallows. Smaller than a thumbnail, minute frogs have been spurred into action by the rain. This is a vocal contest between males. With regular calls, they attract females. And with rapid calls, they warn rival males to keep their distance. A South American cottonwood puts on a show of new leaves. The red pigment shields their delicate tissues from the sun's rays. Later, they'll turn green. Although these young leaves belong to a large tree, they appear at ground level. The tree branches actually grow underground, where they're safe from fires. With the coming of the rains, many plants, like this fire-resistant tree, resprout. Its bark shields Dalbergia violacea from fire. Like many trees of the Cerrado, its branches are twisted. The Cerrado has a great diversity of plants, many showing characteristic features, like this large-leaved hematanthus. Large, broad, leathery leaves are common to many plants in Emas. They've adapted to poor, well-drained soils, low in nutrients. This small hairy plant, a form of mimosa, is found less frequently in the Cerrado. The beautifully blossomed gomphrena is also rare. Fresh leaves are especially nutritious and vulnerable, but this mangaba bush has an unpleasant surprise for animals that try to eat its leaves. As soon as a caterpillar bites into the leaf, latex flows out. The milky gum clogs up the caterpillar's jaws, preventing another bite. The latex isn't only a physical nuisance, it's also distasteful and probably poisonous. But some caterpillars can overcome the plant's built-in defenses. Biting a series of holes in the leaf, the caterpillar lets the latex bleed out. Here, another caterpillar is doing the same. The holes relieve the pressure of the latex within. Only when it has bled the leaf does the caterpillar attempt to eat. It can feed now because any latex left over is no longer under high pressure. It can take several mouthfuls before the latex slowly oozes out. A defense is breached by a resourceful caterpillar, one of the many wonders of Emas. The rains trigger a crop of insects among the new growth. Mantids, grasshoppers, shield bugs, and a host of others. They, in turn, excite a flurry of activity among the birds. The breeding season has arrived. Already 3 to 4 weeks old, this caracara chick is fed at the nest. The caracara is the most common large raptor of the Cerrado. The young, like most birds of prey, remain alone in the nest most of the day. Activity around the nest is heaviest during the early morning and late afternoon. During the day, the parent fetches food, often traveling miles from the nest. The caracara is a hunter and scavenger of the plains, feeding on anything, dead or alive. A pair of campo flickers, woodpeckers, inspect an old nest hole, perhaps drilled and used by them last year. Mockingbirds chase off an egg thief that ventured too close to their nest. Startled by the commotion, a tinamou is flushed from its eggs. It leaves them only as a last resort. Usually it relies on its camouflaged plumage to escape detection, a common ploy for many birds nesting out in the open. Where else can a bird hide a nest here? Underground. The burrowing owl takes over a deserted armadillo hole or excavates a hole of its own. The parent tempts the chicks out with a beakful of food. The chicks don't stray far from the safety of their burrow. Out in the open, unable to fly, they're vulnerable to tejus, maned wolves, and other birds of prey. It's important that they grow up quickly. They're only 3 weeks old, but are already testing their wings. One of the parents always stays close to the nest and keeps a lookout while the chicks are outside their burrow. Under its watchful eye, the chicks preen, exercise, and sun themselves in the fresh air. Within a few weeks, the chicks will be able to fly, and they'll join their parents on hunting trips. The caracara has built its nest out of the reach of ground predators. Although 9 weeks old and almost the same size as its parent, the chick won't leave the security of the nest until it can fly well. Because the chick is big and well armed with a powerful beak and talons, the parents can safely leave it in the nest while they go hunting. But at nesting season, it's perhaps the story of this bird, the Ema, that's the most extraordinary. Although it can fly, it prefers to walk in search of insects, snakes, and lizards to feed to its chicks. Like the caracara, the Ema also nests in a small tree. Leaving the chicks in the nest, the parent goes off in search of more food. They're less than 2 weeks old and unable to fly. In the open nest, they're vulnerable to attack from the air by birds like this long-winged harrier. And it's what happens next that makes the Ema so different. The chicks bail out of the nest. Even when not threatened from the air, Ema chicks always jump from the nests while still very young. There's no going back, which would seem to be extremely dangerous. But in fact, it's safe, for down here, in the grass, they can hide. The parents are no longer obliged to make laborious return visits to the nest. Now, with their young in tow, they can wander further in search of food. Hidden in the cerrados, there are certainly other stories like this, and some may be even more remarkable, but it will take time to discover them. And for most of Brazil's cerrados, time is running out. Perhaps the miracle of Emas is that it exists at all. Only a few years ago, these 500 square miles of national park were still surrounded by a wilderness of cerrado. Today, much of that land has gone under the plow and has become a part of Brazil's ever-growing farmlands. The rolling tide of agriculture has swept to remote corners of Brazil and right up to the boundary of the park. But although agriculture threatens the cerrados of Emas, at the moment they're still secure. A small but vital contribution to the future of South America's wildlife.